What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Silver and Gray, and I recently just finished the Dead Space remake as of an hour ago, my time here, Central Time in Minnesota. But anyways, I want to talk about basically the whole entire remake itself real quick here, and basically give out my very final impressions of it. And this is the reason why this is a shorter video is because I already made my first impressions video not too long ago, earlier today, and I wanted to make it shorter so that way it's short and sweet. So we'll just delve right into this as soon as we can here, and as fast as possible. So here we go. Overall, I would say I think the Dead Space remake did an amazing job. The story is still well intact. Overall, the optional side quests that I recently talked about earlier today in my previous video, they're really fleshed out. I really like the way how there's some implementation of some exploration within those side quests, and it's definitely really worth investing into those because you will get some pretty cool rewards at that minimal requirement. And it's really cool. I really like that concept and aspect of it. Overall, I really think that the game does an excellent job with everything. Its story, its side optional content, its weapons, the gameplay, however, is like it's one of the best in terms of the remake itself and the quality of it. And it just does a really good and phenomenal job of have that type of implementation. I really do think that I think the remake of Dead Space was well worth the wait and was really well worth making as well. I have read some reviews from user reviews, mind you, like gamer user reviews, and they were saying, oh, it's just like the same exact thing but updated graphics. And it's like, that may be, but what I'm trying to get to is the fact that I do believe that when it comes to remakes, and if they're done correctly and done proper, like the Dead Space remake as it is, it's always good to have a remake of something, because even though it's not always the greatest thing to do, but I mean, I just think that people are so used to like just having new IPs rather than just having remakes of the original game itself from its old school versions back in the previous past. So it kind of makes sense that way, I suppose, but either or, I just think that it's a good remake overall, and I think it's one of the best I've seen amongst other from Resident Evil 2 or maybe possibly Resident Evil 3. That was good, but it just wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, but I still liked it overall. And then Resident Evil 2 Remake was very well written, and I love the character progression in that one though too. I thought the character progression in Resident Evil 2 was really well, not really optimized, but it was just well told. And I think what they did with the Dead Space remake, I think the character progression was, it's pretty top notch. I really like the fact that they brought back the same person, Gunnar Wright, to come back and voice Isaac in the remake. And I was talking about how having a mute protagonist it can be a good thing and it be a bad thing, but I think it's a good way that they finally did that, and it just makes it more provocative and makes it more interesting of having Isaac Clarke, especially in the Dead Space remake, to talk. And I think they did an awesome job with that. Now, I want to talk about a couple of things though here too. I think overall, I think the Dead Space remake just does, it's not overwhelming, it's not overbearing. It sets a proper balance of what it wants to do, and I think that the Dead Space remake did just that. That's why I say, remakes are not always the best, but I think they done it proper with this one, and it's more exciting, it's more exhilarating, it's a little bit darker in terms of its lighting structure, but overall I think they just did a really good job with the lighting and its just effects. I'm like I said, I am a sucker when it comes to audio and visual, and because I'm very audio and visual person. I think the graphic fidelity in the Dead Space remake it's not as like what it is or what it looks like in the Callisto Protocol, but it's pretty damn close. I mean, obviously the Callisto Protocol uses a totally entirely different engine of what they did with that game, but with the Frostbite engine with the Dead Space remake, they just did a really good job of utilizing it and optimizing it for the Dead Space remake, and they did it phenomenally. And I think that's why I think the Dead Space remake looks so good, eerily simplistic in a way, and just how it makes the lighting a little bit robust and bounce around the atmosphere of the USG Ishimura. And overall, I just think that it just does it perfectly, and it does it very well, and how it balances itself. Now, I really do think I love this game. I think it's definitely one. I think the Dead Space remake or the original Dead Space is my number one favorite in the Dead Space franchise, in my personal opinion. But Dead Space 2 was really good though as well. As I mentioned with Dead Space 3, I think Dead Space 3 was definitely... I felt like it did feel like it was the weakest, but I did talk about extensively about, how Dead Space 3 utilizes Isaac Clarke more of an engineer by crafting the weapons themselves, but you don't do that per se in Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2 because you're just upgrading your weapons, you're upgrading your gear. And you do that in 3, but on the engineering side and perspective, Isaac Clarke is meant to craft the weapons that he's so uses and as he sees fit because of that specific reason. So I think that's another reason why I think Dead Space 3 was not... It was underwhelming for some, and for me, I don't think it was very underwhelming, but overall, I really do think that Dead Space 3 was still a good game. So, now I'm going to go harken back on Dead Space Remake here. I think the Dead Space Remake just does... It utilizes everything perfectly. It just... I wouldn't say it's flawless, but it does it perfectly. And and there's one thing I will mention as well, is that I have not had any type of graphic bugs or any other frame rate dips or anything, because I am currently playing on the PlayStation 5, and so I haven't had any types of graphical errors or bugs or anything for that matter. I haven't had any FPS frames per second going down a little bit. I had never encountered anything. So I thought I'd put that out there as well, because so that way, I do believe that, sometimes games can be somewhat poorly optimized depending on what platform that they are on, whether if they're on PC, Xbox, or on PlayStation. So, people can have different types of... I don't know how to say it. Just have different experiences with the game itself when it comes to frame rate issues or graphical issues or whatnot, and vice versa. So that's where I was trying to lean towards that. So now, my final impressions on this. Like I said, I recently finished this, and it was excellent. It's the reason why, like I said before, it's the reason why we have single-player games as a whole. And I think single-player games are not dead. They are definitely one of the best mediums in terms of gaming history, or in gaming, or future gaming itself. And I do think that single-player games, they do have a place in the gaming industry. They really do, because it's like people don't always want to have cooperative or multiplayer games. There are gamers out there that are single player only, and you know what? I will say one thing: I just think that people in general need to respect that type of gaming decision or gaming choice more so. And that's important to some gamers out there, preferably me, because I'm more of a single player gamer myself. I do like playing some games cooperatively. I'm not much of a multiplayer person. I really am not. I tried a little bit of Fortnite on Battle Royale or multiplayer. It's all right. It's not bad. But like I said, I'm harkening back to single player games themselves, and I think Dead Space Remake just brought back the nostalgia, brought back to what these games meant back in the year of 2008 when this game first launched. And it shows. And it shows that the remake does something better of what it wants to do, how it achieved it, and I think it achieved it greatly. And that's one of the reasons why I think the Dead Space remake is one of the best remakes of a game of that old school, and that nostalgia of coming to know that this is one of the best third-person survival horror games ever made, and I'm hoping that we see more games like this in the not-too-distant future. But anyways, this is Over in Gray here. Thank you for tuning in. Greatly appreciated. But if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to reply back or answer your questions as I see fit or whenever future possible. So you guys have a good night. Have a good Sunday. And I'm hoping to get really excited for the episode 3 of The Last of Us Season 1 on HBO Max. Peace.